好，那今天晚上就不多说，我知道大家都非常想听到一些干货，今天晚上是干货满满啊，非常的很多的信息，都是我们平常在跟家长和学生打交道的过程当中，有很多的问题是我们收到的，我们听到的，所以我们才会传述给像 Don 这样的导师，让他来跟我们分享这些信息，做一个大家的大众普及。那么您在选择导师的过程当中，因为您很 knowledgeable， 因为您对他们的coach 和他们的evaluating system 很了解的话，您的问的问题就会非常 efficient， 就会问对的问题，而不是有的时候浪费时间来问一些根本就是毫不相关的，或者是不是特别重要的，或者是偏题的，或者一些道听途说的问题，那么就浪费了大家的宝贵的打比说我们说的45分钟的 inquiry meeting 的时间，来了解这个导师到底是不是我们的孩子。我们一再强调，没有最好的导师，只有最合适的导师哈。看到personality wise。
All right, so okay. I think Sophia did some of this in Chinese, so I'm not going to go over it again. The one thing I did want to add after the trustee of the College Board is I also coached soccer at Princeton. I founded the women's program back in the 70s, and when the women became a varsity sport, when the women became a varsity sport, I shifted over and I was assistant coach of the men. Okay, so I've got admissions, I've got financial aid, and I've got athletic coaching experience at Princeton. So let me scroll down here. All right, so first let's talk about financial aid. There's two types of college financial aid, need-based and merit-based. Need is based on the family's financial situation, and merit is based on some student characteristic, primarily academic performance. And there's also athletic scholarships, which I'll talk about later, but for now we'll talk about college financial aid, need-based and merit-based, okay? Need aid first. Requires the completion of an aid application. There are two possible applications. The FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid, is required by all colleges for US citizens. Everybody uses it. It shows eligibility for federal aid, state aid, and most college aid is all governed by the FAFSA. However, there are 240 colleges, mostly private colleges, who have a considerable amount of their own money to award for financial aid. And they would like to get more detail from families that is contained on the FAFSA. So there's another form called Profile. And if you go on a college's financial aid site, they'll tell you which applications. It's always FAFSA. It may also be Profile in addition. It collects additional, more detailed information because colleges want to be a little more careful about how they assign their own money than the federal government is about federal and state aid, okay? So how need aid works. Both applications ask for basic family information, home state, marital status, family size, things like that. Then comes the financial section, which basically asks for income and assets, both parents and student income and assets. Then this data from those first two lines goes into a formula. The FAFSA formula is different from the profile formula. Anyway, out of that data comes what's called an EFC, or expected family contribution. In other words, the amount of money that these two systems think that a family can give in 1 year towards the education of their child. How need aid works too. The EFC is then compared to the college budget, tuition, room, board, miscellaneous expenses, and in some cases travel. And if the EFC is less than the budget, that student has financial need. Then it goes to the financial aid office and they start packaging financial aid. How much grant, how much loan, how much work study, all right? So, however, if the EFC is greater than the cost, that's called being a no need. And you'll get a nice letter saying, thanks for applying for financial aid, but we do not determine that you're eligible to receive any need-based financial aid. Okay, so if the EFC is less than the total cost, eligible for aid, you'll probably get an aid package. If it's more than that, you're called a no need. How need aid works three. If you have need, it's up to the college's aid policy to determine how much aid you will receive and in what form. Aid normally comes in what's called a package consisting of a grant, which is gift aid, a student loan, and a work study job. That's a typical package of financial aid. there's a wide range of how generous a college is in its aid program, ranging from meeting 100% of need with no loan, Princeton, for example, to only meeting a portion of need, and a terminology called gapping, not meeting the full amount of financial need, and also putting much more in the way of loans and jobs on there. Okay, so this one I put in red. To me, it's very important. You should research each college's aid program, much like you research its admissions policies and procedures. This never happens. I'll keep preaching it till the day I die. I have families, time after time, they'll spend 100% of their time on admissions related matters. The student will get in the college and they'll say, oh, by the way, I don't think we can pay for this $50,000, $70,000. What do we do now about financial aid? Well, frankly, by that time, it's probably too late to apply for financial aid and to receive any. So there is enough information to gain that as you go along with your college planning, you do your financial aid planning and knowledge at the same time. This is very important. So there's one thing you learned tonight, it's in red. Research the college's aid program, much like you would research its admission policy and procedures. If I can leave you with that thought, I'm satisfied. Okay, so anyway, assuming you do that, here's the recommended procedure. Choose about 4 colleges from your list, including at least one public, because they do financial aid differently. Go to the financial aid section of the website, read policies and procedures, and complete what's called the net price calculator. Each college is required to have on their financial aid site a way for you to put in your information and calculate what that college would do for you in the way of financial aid. And you want to do it for each college because they all do things differently. This will tell you if it's worthwhile to apply for aid and give you an idea how that college will package an aid award into grant, student loan, and work study. It'll show you the total amount of likely aid and also show you how it's packaged into these 3 components. Expect different results for different schools. At some you may have need, others not. Some aid packages will be more generous than others. A greater percentage of grant, a less percent of what's called self-help, loan and job. These results may cause you to add or subtract colleges from your list. Some of them you simply won't be able to afford, and maybe some others will come in with more generous aid package that you will be able to afford. Okay, so go through this process if you believe that you don't have full financial resource to pay for the cost of the highest cost college on your students list. Okay, college merit aid. If you don't qualify for need aid, your colleges, merit aid will be the only way to reduce the sticker price. Regardless of whether or not you qualify for need aid, read the scholarship section. Even if receiving need aid, you may be eligible for merit aid. It's possible you get both merit and need aid in the same package. And if you do that, you'll probably have less of a loan and a job than if you just had the need-based aid. So anyway, you want to find out about scholarships as well as need aid. Although there may be some restricted scholarships, most money goes to the top applicants based on admissions rating. Typically, the top 25% of the applicant pool get merit money called scholarships from the college in order to reduce the tuition costs so they can compete better with other colleges and whatever their competitive set is. The higher the admissions rate, the more generous the award. The students in the top 5% might get full tuition. Someone in the top 10 or 15% might get half tuition. Below that, maybe $5,000. It all varies on the college and how they set up their merit program. A separate application is not usually required, but if you read a scholarship section, you'll know. In most cases, the admissions application is the application for college scholarships. But do read the section of scholarships to make sure that that's the case, or whether any kind of a separate application is required. Outside scholarships. Okay, so I talked about college money now. I talked about need-based money and merit-based money. Now there are other forms of financial aid we call outside scholarships because they're from outside the university. The largest source is from organizations and companies seeking to help students. For example, National Merit. When your student takes the PSAT, they may qualify for the National Merit Scholarships. There are a lot of other national sponsors like Coca-Cola and others who run large scholarship programs. And there are a lot of local scholarships like Rotary Club, Lions Club, PTA, things like that. They normally are assigned at graduation and they're usually relatively modest, $500, $1,000. But you've got national scholarships and you have more local scholarships. Okay? Many colleges, nonprofits, and other companies give scholarships as an employee benefit. I think if some of the people listening tonight probably work for a nonprofit of some kind, that probably as an employee benefit gives you some help towards your students' education. It'd be very nice if you can get that. You can look for state, regional, and national scholarships using scholarship search programs. There's one called FastWeb that you can put the data in and see whether your son or daughter matches up with any scholarships at the state, regional, national level. And the College Board has their own scholarship search program. So that's how you look for outside scholarships, okay? And you want to do that along with the college scholarship looking and a scholarship need base we talked about. So you can see, this is not a simple process. And that's why I say it should parallel your work on the admissions end of things, is all the things you have to do about lowering the cost of education. Outside scholarships. If you already have an award from the college, need-based, merit, or combination of the two, and you win an outside scholarship, get in touch with an aid office and ask how that will be combined with your college aid. If you have unmet need, if the college has not met 100% of that need at the bottom, ask if it be used to fill what's called the gap, to get you closer to having 100% of need with the college aid and with the outside aid together. If you've been awarded 100% of need, ask that money be reduced to reduce the student loan or job. In other words, as a reward for you bringing the money to the university, maybe they can give you somewhat of a break on the amount of student loan and job. But anyway, if you do get an outside scholarship, once you have an award from the university, go and talk to the financial aid office and see if you can figure out a way that will benefit you best when that outside money comes in, okay? Common myth, another one in red. A student's chance of being admitted is higher if he or she does not apply for aid. I hear this all the time. Not true, except in very rare circumstances. Let's go through this step by step. One is all public institutions have separate financial aid and admissions offices, all right? The financial aid, the admission office admits, and then the financial aid looks at it. If they don't have enough money to fund that student completely, that's okay. The student is still admitted, and the student then has to fill in whatever the amount is. Most publics do not have their own money to do financial aid. What they do is they package federal Pell grants, they package work study, they package state grants, they package basically other people's money. And once that money runs out, there's a gap, probably a gap in financial aid, and you have to be responsible to fill the gap. The point is you're admitted to that institution and you take care of the financial part of it on your own, okay? The other thing then, so let's say it's a private institution. Nearly all of the top 50 institutions that Sophia mentioned before meet 100% of financial need, and they're need blind. Need blind means that admissions office does their work, financial aid office does their work, and they come together without any back and forth between the two, okay? So these top schools are need blind, which means whether you apply for aid or not does not affect your admissions. Now, the third thing that can happen, you may be thinking about colleges that are not, let's say, in the top 50 or so that are need blind, and you apply for financial aid. And what happens in most cases, there's an exception now and then, is they would rather admit you and have you figure out how you're going to pay than not admit you. Okay, in the business it's called deny admit versus admit deny. Okay, deny admit means we don't have money for the student, so we're not going to admit him, even though he's qualified. Admit deny means we're going to go ahead and admit the student, but we'll not give him financial aid, he or she financial aid. Okay, I once ran a major seminar and conference on this, and there are not very many colleges that will do deny admit. They want to admit you if you're otherwise qualified and let you figure out how you're going to pay for education. Okay, so what it amounts to, all this filtering through these different public and private and need blind and whatever, means there may be a handful of institutions somewhere that they believe it's better not to admit you if they don't have the aid for you than to admit you. But that is a very small percentage of the possible colleges your son or daughter will apply to. Okay, so anyway, my advice is to go through the aid research method I mentioned. If you believe you will qualify, apply for aid. financial aid officer, service oriented. If questions about policy, eligibility, special circumstances, call or email. I'm old fashioned enough to think you should call the financial aid office. It's much harder to turn you down in a conversation than it is to have an email come in and say, I'm sorry, and have it go back to you. So I think if it's an important matter of finances and where your son or daughter is going to go to school, call them or visit them rather than send an email. Okay, call me old fashioned, but I believe that's a better way to get a good result. Okay, so that's the whole aid section. All right.
Don, before you starting the athlete, can you move your camera lower a little bit? Because audience saying they can only see your forehead. Just lower a little bit so we can see you more face, if you can.
You say lower the voice?
No, not lower your voice, lower your camera. Move your screen maybe a little bit lower because we only see your forehead. We don't see your whole face.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that my video was on. Where is that?
It's on now. All right.
Yeah, I don't even, I have this open now.
Okay, all right. That's all right.
I got full screen, Sophia, so I don't have room for.
Got it. Okay, that's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry if you only can see my head.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Let me see what's down here. Wait a second. I'll take it all back. I take it all back. I found it.
Yes. Now, nice. Thank you.
This was off my screen. I brought it in.
Okay, thank you.
I'm learning. Okay.
All right. That's okay.
All right. They should be looking at the PowerPoint anyway, so that's okay. All right, here we go. College athletic recruiting. How important is it to be a recruit? Depending upon the sport and the student's ability, being an athletic recruit can be the largest single factor in admissions. That's the case. It's better than an alumni son or daughter. It's better than being a minority member. It's better than coming from a state where they don't have very many students, whatever. It can be the largest single factor in admissions, okay? Regards to division, coaches of intercollegiate sports send a recruit list to admissions for special consideration. This is not true for club sports. It's only intercollegiate sports. Club sports do not get an admissions boost like intercollegiate sports do. If you're on that coach's list, your admission standards are lower than for other applicants. The coach can give you an indication of whether you'll be admitted, but the final decision is made in admissions. What are the academic standards to admit an athlete? The NCAA has minimum standards, which are very low and mostly apply to football and basketball recruits. A conference can have their own higher standards, like the Ivy League, like the Atlantic Coast Conference. And individual schools can even impose higher standards, right? So I don't know, I would say except for the very big revenue sports like football and basketball, most recruits have to have higher academic qualifications than what the NCAA requires. I'll give you an example how low they are later on. Ivy League standards, which you're probably interested in. The standard is called the Academic Index. I was actually on the committee that developed this years ago. The AI measures it if the athlete's academic credentials are within a standard deviation of the class average. So the rule is we will admit athletes if they're more or less like our other students. And more or less like other students mean they're within one standard deviation academically of the class average. So they get a bit of a break, but not a substantial break. That's the Ivy rule. There's also minimum AI under which no student can be admitted. So there's a relative measure based on a standard deviation of the class, and there's also a minimum one that all colleges in the Ivy League have to apply to, okay? So if you look at it, Harvard has to admit smarter athletes than Cornell because that standard deviation for Harvard is higher than it is for Cornell. On the other hand, none of them can admit a student below a certain minimum AI. So it's a well-designed system with a comparison to your other students plus a floor so that there's no athlete who's clearly below an acceptable level. The coach runs his athlete's numbers through the AI program. If the AI is sufficient, the coach can include the student on his recruit list to admission. This coach have the AI calculation right on the desk. Questionnaire comes in, coach punches in the different things, either tells the student that they can qualify or says, I'm sorry, you better try another school, okay? And that's done right up front. If you want to find out how to do an academic index for your child, then you can go on Google and there's called Top Tier Admissions. I know is a site that has the academic index on it, and a number of other sites have it as well. Important, the student can meet the AI standards and still not be admitted. Okay, even though you're above the AI level, does not mean it. The admissions office has the final say. Okay. So when the athletic list goes to admissions, they look down at, and they don't necessarily admit the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 athletes. They're interested in the athletes who are doing the best with the highest AI. So they may very well turn down number 1 and take number 3 because that student is a better student, or take number 5 and number 6. Okay. So the point here is, even if you're an athlete, it really pays to be a good student, because the admissions office wants the better students, the coaches want the better athletes, and the admissions has the final say. Overview of college sports. They come on the NCAA sets the rules for student eligibility. So if your student is an athlete, you go on the Eligibility Center and you look at all the different rules they have, and there are a lot of them. There are 3 divisions, D1, D2, and D3. Students looking to play at D1 or 2 colleges need to register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. Now, here are these academic minimums I talked about. You may practice, compete, and receive an athletic scholarship during your first year if you have the following: a minimum SAT reading, writing, and math score of 980. Okay, so obviously it's not the highest level you would expect. And you've got to take a nice distribution of English, math, science, whatever. There aren't that many athletes with this type of minimums who are going to be accepted at an institution, except possibly for football and basketball, and maybe another sport if the student is a future All-American. But anyway, I just want to show you how low the minimums are, but in most cases they don't apply to the typical athlete. So my college count, okay. All right, see, this is the one, I'm sorry, this one's out of order. I had changed this and I moved it. Let's skip this for now and I'll come back to it. Okay, Division I, 350 colleges with strong athletic programs that strive to compete at the highest level in D1. This is what I call the money division. Income from TV contracts and other sources make this a multi-million-dollar operation. Related to this, students can receive athletic scholarships. Examples: Alabama, Duke, UCLA, Michigan, Stanford, Boston College. And the Ivy League is in Division I, mostly because of the strength of their minor sports, not football and basketball, but they are in Division I. Division II is kind of in between. Frankly, you probably haven't heard of hardly any colleges in this division, but there are 309 of them. They have athletic scholarships. They're just simply less competitive on the admission level. For example, look down the bottom: Adelphi, Cal State Fullerton, Mercyhurst, Northern Michigan, Stonehill. I don't know whether you heard of any of those colleges, but normally it would not be in the top 300 or so that most of the families listening tonight probably are looking to have their son or daughter go. Anyway, there is a Division II. They do give athletic scholarships if they are in touch with your child. Largest division, Division III, mostly small colleges. Now, this is key. Compared to Division I, sports are considered to be a student activity like other extracurriculars rather than a separate entity. But recruits still receive an admissions advantage. Okay, even Division III coaches send the list to admissions, and there is a break in the admission formula for them. And the income tends to be modest. The department's income mostly operate at a loss. There are no athletic scholarships in Division III. Examples: Williams, Emory, Hamilton, Johns Hopkins, NYU, Pomona, Carnegie Mellon, and so forth. Okay, 442 small colleges mostly. Even though the Ivy League is in Division I, their athletic philosophy is much like Division III. Higher admission standards, they come nowhere near the NCAA standards. They use the AI, and no athletic scholarships. Many selective D3 colleges use a screening system similar to the AI. In other words, there's a group called NASCAC, Williams, Amherst, Middlebury, so on and so forth, basically use a version of the AI that the Ivies use. Are you a D1 recruit? Be very good at your sport for many years, achieve high school honors, all state or higher, play sport for a high-level club team. In other words, very few Division I athletes only compete in high school. They nearly all compete at a club level outside of school. Attend showcases. These are kind of where good teams get together and coaches show up to evaluate. or elite camps, usually run on campus by the coaches, is also a place to show what kind of an athlete you are. Coach, if you are that good, Coach Like has already been in touch. And the key thing, if you're a serious candidate, they will ask you to make an official visit, meaning the college pays for the visit. And that really means that they're very serious about having you on their list and sending you up to admissions. You can self-recruit if not pursued by the coach. Self-recruiting is fairly common, except for top athletes. You want to make an evaluation of whether it's worthwhile to do it. Compare your talent to others in your sport at the college. Obviously, easy if you're in track or swimming or something. But on the other hand, you can maybe get some idea of the students from your school or another school who went to that college, and whether your ability in a football or basketball or soccer or whatever is comparable. So if you think you're comparable to the typical athlete there, it's probably worthwhile to self-recruit. If you want to, call or email the coach. Once again, I'm big on calling or even stopping by. Complete recruit questionnaire, very important for you to be registered as a possible recruit. Volunteer to make an unofficial visit. Give school and club sports schedule to the coach. So if they want to come watch you play, they can. And it's a good idea to have your high school or club coach contact them, because college, if the coach doesn't know much about you, what they do is what's called comparables. This student that you're recommending to me, who is he like on my team, or who's he like in the league that we play? And that way they can really tell, particularly in non-time sports, how good you are and whether it's worth putting you forward and eventually becoming a recruit. Walk-ons can be any division. It means you're not recruited in any way, okay? Either self-recruited or from the coach's point of view. Most likely in D3, if you're not recruited and strongly feel you can play at the college, ask if the coach allows walk-ons. Most do, some don't, which are non-recruited athletes who basically try out for the team. There are many cases of walk-ons making a varsity team and doing well. There is no admissions boost for walk-ons and no scholarships, at least in the freshman year. I tell you, I coached assistant coach of men's soccer at Princeton. One year we went to the Final Four of the NCAA championship, and on a starting 11 team in the Final Four, we had 5 students who were walk-ons who ended up starting in that game. So there, we do recruit. We do have a number of recruits, but we had a number of students who walk on who did very well, and they were starters on a varsity team that played at the championship level. So that's an extreme example, but it can happen. Athletic scholarships, D1 and D2 only. D3 can only receive need-based or academic scholarships. Only, by the way, you don't want to have your student think that they're going to college to win what's called a full ride, okay? Only 2% of high school athletes are awarded athletic scholarships. This is high school athletes going on to college and getting an athletic scholarship, 2% of high school athletes. The primary advantage for being an athlete is college attendance and an increase in admission chances. Going to a school you might otherwise be able to attend. Unless a major sport, usually football and basketball, or spotlighted sport at certain schools like baseball or ice hockey, don't expect a full ride. Tuition, room, and board. In other words, my kid's a great athlete. They're going to get a full ride. Almost never happens. If aided, most likely will get a, by the way, Division III has no scholarships at all. So if they go there, there's no ride of any kind. If aided, most likely will get a partial, like 1/2 tuition. Minor sports coaches tend to use scholarship allotment for a number of players. Example, NCAA men's soccer has 9 full scholarships. Coach might give partials to cover 18 players rather than limit aid to only 9 players. In other words, give everybody basically half an award, so most of the first team and the students that play all can get some form of financial aid. So that's a very typical way to handle scholarships. Okay, so let me see where we are here. Okay, so now that concludes the financial aid section, and that concludes the athletic section. Okay, I hope I didn't go too fast. I hope you understood most of it, that we had the visual. I think it's being recorded, and maybe you can get a copy of it if it wasn't all clear. So now just finish a little bit here about me. I do college counseling for IvyCompass. My approach is I play the role of admissions officer at the applicant college. I play admissions at whatever college your son or daughter applies to. Based on the student's ability and interest, I give guidance so the student becomes the best possible applicant. I use a proven method to rate the student compared to the college selectivity level, and we organize the list in different categories of reach and match and safety, so on and so on. But it's a very time-tested, sophisticated system. It's not like holding one's finger up to the wind and making guesses about possibilities. I accurately judge a student's admitted chance at each college and adjust the list necessary to find a balance between reach, match, and safety schools. I advise on how to most effectively use, this is very important, how to effectively use ED1, early action, ED2, rolling, and regular application options to increase admission chances. So even when a student gets a list, it's very important as to what order and what type of applicant plan they use in order to go through their colleges, okay? And then I think there's just one more, well, I guess two more. Step one is I receive all these documents and we have a meeting and we talk about it and we have a very thorough discussion. And then basically you decide what you'd like to do, but we do anywhere an hour plus, hour and a half to go over thoroughly the transcript and all the other extracurricular information. And then the final step I do this admissions officer evaluation of the academic and personal performance. The system is essentially what Princeton admissions office uses in rating applicants, basically based on what I learned there. I transfer that to my service. And I use that as a baseline from which to advise the student on how to improve both academic and personal rating as much as possible. So as I say to my client, in fact, I had one this afternoon, my job is to help you as much as I can, provide a roadmap, but it's up to you to drive the car, okay? So we work hand in hand, do the best possible thing you can, okay? So that is the last slide. I'm sorry for the confusion at the beginning, but you did one way or the other get the full presentation, and I'll turn it over to Sophia and how she wants to handle it now.
Okay, let's see this question. This question said, since most recruitment process starts at the beginning of junior year, does it mean the GPA in the freshman and junior year is critical?
You say the freshman and junior year?
Yeah, because you see recruitment process starts at the beginning of junior year, right? Like 11th grade. A lot of coaches go out there to recruit the athletes. So if that GPA in freshman and junior year is very critical.
I guess I don't quite follow that. All the years are critical, okay? And if the student is a top level athlete and they're going to recruit the student in the 10th grade, then freshman and sophomore years are the most important. If they're going to recruit the student in the 12th grade, freshman, sophomore, junior year are important, okay? So it really depends. Every year is important in college admissions, but they're progressively more important as you go along. Sophomore year is more important than freshman year. Junior year is more important than sophomore year. Senior year, they probably don't see much of senior year. So junior year is the key year in admissions. Now, for an athlete, they may have to do better earlier because the coach may want to get them to commit earlier on. So I'm not sure whether I'm even answering that question right.
Okay, this is very.
You want to do well from the start. That's the key. And if anything, they give you a little bit of break for freshman year because they know some students are just adjusting to high school. As a matter of fact, University of California only looks at 10th and 11th grade in admissions. They don't even look at freshman year, okay? So if anything, do better as you go along, but do good in every year.
Okay. This is go ahead. I saw a question great from Olivia Ma. This is a great question. Hi, Don. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question. If a student is a good athlete, he plays in the varsity team in his high school and spends lots of time and effort on that, but he is not able to get recruited as a college team athlete. Does this athletic experience help in the regular non-athletic admission?
Okay, so if the student is a good athlete, but they're not at a level where they're going to be recruited, then the athletic ability, leadership, whatever they do is just considered a talent in the extracurricular part of the application. Okay, it's much like being a member of a club, Model UN, athletics, band, whatever. Okay, so if they're not recruited, it is a way to show the student has leadership, has ability or whatever. Okay, so it's a part of the what I call the personal side. It's part of the activity, leadership, volunteer, whatever. Okay, if they're not. So what I hear a lot is, well, my student is a 3-sport athlete. They're track. They run cross country in the fall. They run winter track in the winter, and they run spring track. But they're not going to be recruited. So what do you think? I said, if they like running and it all year round, let them stay with it, and it's going to be their good activity and whatever. But it's going to take up a good bit of time, so you decide how valuable that is. Okay. But anyway, if they're not recruited, it's simply an activity, is what it is.
Yeah, I'm going to use Chinese to repeat a little bit because many parents calling us ask this question. Don 刚刚说的这个非常重要我想再重复一下哈 highlight 一下，因为我们有很多家长会给我们打电话说，我们家小孩花很多时间，咱们说跑步啊、长跑啊，或者是 swimming 啊，都要花很多时间训练。那么如果他不能够被大学去 ahead of time 去 recruit as a athletic recruiting 的话，只有被这些 recruiting 他才能够所谓的加分因为他这个 coach 是可以传递小条子给这个 college admission officer， 给他加分，但不代表最后的决定还是有 regular 的这个 college admission 这个 group 来决定的所以不是 coach 来决定的。如果您没有被 athletic recruiter 这个 recruiting as a coach 去 recruit 到这个 team 的话，那么您这个所有的体育的这些活动和校队的这个活动就变成了一个跟其他的它叫 personal 的跟 volunteer leadership 这个同等别，就是等于算它是一个 hobby， 算一个小的 talent 那这个呢是不能直接的为咱们的这个升学的整个 package 是来加分的，只是能够展现它是一个比较全面的，除了学习以外有多个爱好和多个那个 hobby 的这个学生。所以您说加不加分会有一点，但是呢只是展现非常小的一部分，就不是像 athletic recruiting 那样子去可以 consider academic 稍微 lower 这样的一个条件我不知道有没有那个解释特别清楚哈，那就是说他的意思最重要的是我们要 take away 的就是您值不值当，如果他不是那么 talented athlete 的话，您值不值当花那么多的时间在这个训练上面，因为很有可能占用了你很多时间，就不能够去花时间做那些对于您升学可能我们功利点的来说的话更加有帮助，打比方说做一些 cornerstone 的 project research project 可能更加能够在他的整个 portfolio 上面更加能够让这个 college admission officer 来看到您的这个 academic 的这个 capability 和 deep thinking 的这个 capability 这个体育就变成了一个平等其他在这个其他个人方面的一个因素而已这个就是要giving a take opportunity loss 这样的一个 factor。 OK 好 OK next question from 李胜 OK Don the next question from Shen Li asking college coach has interest on the student on my student our REA application asking REA application as athlete tagged REA no commitment on the admission. High school counselor said it means potential bringing obligation, otherwise it will impact future this college athlete recruitment. What is the common rule on finding of athlete tagged REA applications? Thank you.
Okay, so the general rule is there, you're recruited by, let's say, an Ivy League school or whatever, okay? So you make a visit, coach says, I'd like you to have you join our team. You meet some of the teammates and it all looks good, okay? Then the coach will have you fill out a preliminary application or something like that, and he will take it to the admissions office and it's what's called an early read. And the admission officer will kind of give a thumbs up, a wait, a thumbs down, whatever. Okay. Now, if it all goes well and the admission says it looks good and the coach has had a good conversation, the student likes that school, the coach will most likely say, I want you to apply either early decision or early action. Because now that he is going to bat for you, he wants to make sure he's going to get you on his team, okay? So if the school has early decision, he's most likely says, now I want you to apply ED. And if the school has early action, he'll say, I want you to apply early action. So it's a two-way street. if he's going to give you a break and go through all this trouble, he would like to have you on the team. Therefore, he wants to basically have you commit along with his help. Okay, not always, but in most cases, it's a two-way street. I'll help you, but you commit to attend my institution.
Thank you. Okay, next question is for Kirby Wong, saying, for legacy applicants, for example, Princeton, who applying versus regular decision rather than early action actually be deemed as less interested, therefore jeopardize the admission chances.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, first place, legacy is not what it used to be, okay? It's still a factor. If you would go back 20 or 30 years, it was an important factor. Nowadays, they say it's like a thumb on the scale, okay? It's like a tiebreaker. It still counts, but it counts in the margin. Now, for the legacy, let's call it benefit, to come into a play, they would like to know. For example, University of Pennsylvania only considers legacy advantage if you apply early decision. So maybe that's what this person had in mind. So for the most part, it's up to the institution, but at least for Penn and some others, if you want to boost for legacy, you commit to attend. For those who apply regular or early action, there's very little advantage to legacy because they just don't know what school you're going to go to. Okay, I don't know whether that answers the question or not, but don't in today's selective colleges, don't put much weight on the legacy advantage. It's really diminished down to quite a bit. In fact, some schools like Amherst have said, we're not considering legacy at all. They've come out and said that. And some that still have it, like Penn, say you must apply ED to get the legacy boost. So you've got to read the fine print if you've got a son or daughter going to a school that you graduated from, because it varies.
Okay, great. Thank you, Don. The next question from Vivian Dean. My son has been communicating to a higher academic D3 colleges versus self-recruiting and did an unofficial visit. The coach has not definitely said that he is officially recruited for the team. Should we ask the coach directly, and how do we do it politely so we don't ruin the good relationship we're having right now?
How do you do it politely? Well, yeah, you should do it politely. I think what you have to say is, look, this is our number one school. We visited, you've shown interest. Obviously, the coach is thinking about some other players, okay? And he's waiting to see who goes off to Division I, who goes here, who goes there. So he's kind of keeping you around because he may very well turn to you if some of his other recruits don't work out. So I think what you say is, you're still our number one school. If you decide to support us for admissions, we will commit to attend. But while we're doing that, we are also going to go and make unofficial visit to school 2, 3, and 4. Because while you're doing your thing, we keeping your options open. We want to keep our options open. So I would very politely say that you're still our number one. If you let us in, we'll commit. However, we're going to be shopping around. And I think you can do that politely. And I think, in fact, the coach expects you to say that. He doesn't expect you to hang in there if he's not giving you any kind of positive feedback. So I think you can do that politely.
Great, thank you. Okay, this question from Ze Chen Fang. For people that have a verbal commitment, do they still have to apply to colleges, or are they basically accepted?
That's a good question. My daughter was a field hockey recruit at Rutgers, and the coach came down and saw her play and said, "You're admitted to Rutgers." And then the coach said, "Oh, by the way, you have to fill out an application." So at some levels of Division I, you know, that's Ann, you know Ann, Sophia.
Yes.
So at some level, the coach basically has authority. It's usually Division I, major programs, usually, you know, when we talked about the money programs, whatever. So at certain institutions, the coach has the guidelines from admissions. If the student meets those guidelines, the coach can commit for admissions, but an application still has to be filled out. So they go through the process, they get registered, whatever. But in some cases, the coach can admit, but you got to be very careful and trust the coach that that's a firm commitment that they have authority to do that. Okay. there's always the final word is admissions has the final word. So if the coach says you're in, you really have to trust the coach, I guess is what you're saying.
Okay, great. In between answer the questions, I just remember something. I know on the end of a presentation, you talked about your system. I think I wanted to spend a little bit more time to let the audience know how great that system is. Pardon me for like a second, I'm going to use Chinese and English to mix to explaining a little bit to the people right now still with us. 我想跟您分享的是 Don 在最后 presentation 的时候讲到了第3个方面，他现在沿用的就是他把他自己放在了一个college application 的这个 evaluator 的这个角色，就像他原来在普林斯顿做的时候，他沿用的这个体系和系统呢，也是这个在普林斯顿，但是其中有一个他所刚刚在这个当中说的有一个 system， 这个 system 呢是一个有点像 application 的东西，这个什么呢？就是这个我想强调一点的是，这个系统实际上是几年前他作为college board 的 trustee 和这个 advisor 跟 college board 的一群人一起 IT 的人一起设计了这么一套这个 system， 这个 system 呢是您可以把学生的 GPA、ACT score、你的 AP class、你的 activity 你的这个所有的 leadership、volunteer 包括这个有可能的这个recommendation letter， 所有的这些需要去送到学校去 evaluating 你整个这个学生的 portfolio 的信息和情况都收集到了以后，也就是 Don 这边呢会给我们一个questionnaire 这个表格，这个表格你拿到手上让孩子填写了以后，最好的作用是什么？您记住了，就是当您不管现在已经跟其他机构签了这个 college application 的这个 consulting services， 还是还没有签，还是您未来在选择跟任何一个机构去做这样的一个辅导的这个服务的这个时候呢，您都可以过来，我们有一个产品就是几百块钱、几百美元的事情，我们是可以另外跟您服务于您，让您的孩子通过把您的信息放到 Don 的这个系统当中，您就比较科学的，因为这个系统是每年被 College Board 的信息来 dump 的，就是它会让这个信息它的这个里面的这个 data 就是比较活的，不是死的，就是非常 up to date and fresh 的。您就可以让你小孩子喜欢的学校来看得出来，哪些学校是比较对他来说 difficult 的，哪些学校是来说是 match 的比较 reasonable 的，哪些学校是他 safety 的。所以当您的孩子不管在我们这边签没有签我们的这个college 的这个 application 的服务，我们都可以把这个产品打开给所有的 audience， 所有的观众和家庭。那您的孩子如果不太确定，哎呀，有很多家长来说我们家孩子喜欢 MIT， 但是您不知道您孩子现在所具备的所有条件对 MIT 这样的学校来讲，你有多大的 chance 有的时候是不够这个 chance 的就是不能因为我们小孩子感兴趣，那我们家长就兴奋的不得了，就觉得哎呀，那我们家小孩子有这个兴趣，我要保护他这个兴趣，然后就把好多的学校和你的这个学校的单子都放得非常 competitive， 那这样的话实际上你会 lost lots of opportunity， 有的时候还会比较危险。那么这样的一个产品刚刚Don介绍了一点点因为我们今天的主题不是这个，但是后面我觉得我跟 Allison 可能会找一个时间把这个产品分享给大家，但是今天我就是想在这个回答问题期间正好大家在，我把这个可能性跟大家分享的，就是提前给你一个剧透吧，给你一个剧透。那这个产品好处呢，第一，你在了解你学生这个 college 的这个单子上面有没有比较好的去 strategically 安排。第二个，你有一个 1 hour 或 1 hour and a half 刚刚Don说的consulting 的 opportunity 来问，根据你孩子现在已有所具备的这些 evidence 和你所提供的这个学校的这个单子，你是不是一个很好的 allocation。也许你这个单子安排的比较好的话呢，那你的这个 chance 就会增加，对吧？然后我缺啥，我们是会有一个这样一个 consulting 的 package， 然后会出一个简单的一个 consulting 的报告，就告诉您的 gap 在哪里，你哪些学校是比较好的 match， 哪些学校是太重了，就是 那些比较困难的学校、比较挑战的学校，您不太够格的，说白了，这些学校您 allocating 太多的这个数据在那儿了，或者是数量在那儿了。我就是跟大家分享一点。当然，你有对这个细节的产品更加感兴趣的话，因为它也就是几百块钱的事儿啊，就是一个很小的钱，但是呢，对您申请这个比较 targeted 的学校会有极大的帮助。Don, I just use Chinese to emphasize about the program we are going to offer to all families. Doesn't matter they have a consultation service with us or not. Even they may be signing the contract with the other firms or companies. They still able to come to us asking the information submitted to you, and you providing 1 hour consultation services to them. Let them have a better idea what school is matching, what school is more difficult, and what school is safe for them to put on their college list. Okay, I just repeated it. Okay. Now come down to I know there is a some people. Let me see if some people raise hand. Yes, I have 2 people raise hand. Now I give the floor to C Bao ZH. XH also unmute yourself. Yeah, you can speak now. XH, please.
Hello. Thank you, Don, for these all wonderful information. I have a question about financial aid with the early either ED or DA. So what is the deadline for the financial aid applicants? And does it, if you choose EA or ED, will it affect your financial aid program? Thank you.
The applications for federal aid for FAFSA and Profile open on October 1st of the senior year, or is coming up right now. In most cases, if you apply early, let's say early decision, and the student is admitted, normally they send the aid application to the financial aid office, and when you were notified of an early decision admission, let's say middle of December is typical, there would be a financial aid award in the admission decision. Okay, that's a typical way to handle early decision. Admissions and financial aid together, roughly in the middle of December.
Thank you. And then also you mentioned the legacy. Can we find which school, count legacy, which school doesn't, count as legacy? Is it on website, each school's website?
I don't think so. That's a matter of policy. Amherst came out and said no legacies. Penn says early decision only. So I think you'd have to go to the school. If it's just a matter of no special policy and you want to know the weight of legacy in the admissions process, I don't think they're going to tell you that. Okay. But okay. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. I just would not put nowadays on it a lot of emphasis. It'll be, as I said, it's like a thumb on a scale. I believe the general rule now is for the privates, legacy, mom and dad, either mom or dad, undergraduate degree, not so much graduate, not grandparents and whatever. Mom and dad, undergraduate degree, I'd say it's a bit of an advantage, but not significant.
You may want to what?
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, H. Next one, Sibo, I saw you speaking. Now you can speak. CZ, please.
Oh, hi. My question is maybe out of your scope. So when we reach out to the college coach, should we reach out by ourselves, or should we reach out to the college coach by our club coach?
Oh, yourself. Your son, your daughter, whoever, the first thing you do is fill out the questionnaire, the recruiting questionnaire. That opens up the recruiting season. And and you'll get a response back probably. Either we're interested or not interested. If you're not interested, you go on to another school, okay? If there's some interest, the coach will most likely ask you more questions and invite you for what's called an unofficial visit, okay? But it all starts with filling out the recruiting questionnaire on the site and then wait and see what happens after that. And then if it takes off, fine, you do all the different things. If they're not interested, move on.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, next question, go back to chat box. We still have a lot. from Zhou Ling. Does evaluation of walk-on happen before or after admission?
Excuse me, how much is what before or after admission?
Does evaluation of walk-on happen
Well,
before or
walk-on.
after admission?
Oh, it's after. There's no admission advantage to a walk-on. A walk-on means you're not listed as an athlete. You get in on your own, but you've got some ability. And most sports, maybe not football and basketball, have a tryout period before their regular season starts. When freshman week starts, they'll say, come on out, whatever, 3 to 5 on a Thursday, and we'll watch you play. And if you seem to be a good soccer player, we'll have you join the varsity, and we'll see what happens along the way, okay? So tryouts are pretty common. Crew is a very common sport for tryouts. They're looking for big, tall athletes who are strong and can row. Soccer is a common one, whatever. So the main thing is, if you're an athlete, you're not recruited, you show up on campus, go to the coach's office and say, I think I might be able to help you. Do you have tryouts? If so, I would like to participate. That's the way to do it.
Okay, great, thank you. This question coming from Cindy Dai. Cindy Dai asking, if there's a time, can Don talk about a little bit specific about track recruitment and scholarship?
Track recruitment?
Mm-hmm.
So that's an easy one. You compare, obviously, if your times are really good, the coach will get in touch with you, okay? However, chances are, once again, self-recruiting is the most common way to do it. So you're interested in a college, you go on their website and you look, let's say you run the 800 meters. You go on the website and you see what the school record is, you don't have to worry about that. But then you go see what the 800-meter runners did in the most recent meets. That's the key way to do it. And if you see you're comparable or better than the typical runner at that institution in this current season, then you fill out the questionnaire, you email the coach, you do all these different things, and you say, I think I can help you. What do I have to do to be recruited?
Okay. All right, this question from Lily Ma. Does athlete recruit have to be ED, or can it be ED2 or RD?
Well, I asked before, the coach, if he's going to support you, he or she would like to see that you're going to attend. So most likely, if you say, I check with admissions, you're admissible, I'd like you to apply the equivalent of ED, okay? If they don't have ED, then you say, how about they would do early action? And if they don't have either, they'd like a verbal commitment that you will attend once admitted. So one way or another, as I say, it's a two-way street. If the coach is going to go to bat for you and get you admitted, you really have to commit one way or another to that institution, okay? Now, just quickly, Sophie, I saw something come through in this chat group about verbal commitments. Okay? Oftentimes, an athlete, a sophomore to junior, will get a verbal commitment from a coach. I will, if you apply to my institution later on, you will be admitted. Okay. Now, if the coach is honest and a student stays with it, verbal commitments can often end up being a regular recruiting situation. However, a student is not obligated to attend an institution until they sign what's called a letter of intent. And the letter of intent is when they officially agree to attend an institution. So anything before the letter of intent is basically based on the trust of the coach and the trust of the student, okay?
Okay. All right, is international student eligible for a financial aid for US colleges?
Depends on the college. Those with strong aid programs generally treat international students about the same as domestic students. But once you get past the top 20 or 30, they probably will give some form of financial aid. They can't give federal and state aid, so they would have to have some institutional money. And I'd say they would probably try and help the student to some extent, but it's very unlikely they would meet full financial need.
Okay, great. Yeah, this last question comes in, new one. Don, is this amount of grant to a freshman determined by a formula or the financial aid officer? In other words, do they have their own up to 15,000 extra quota that they can provide to a student?
I guess it's not clear. Was the question, does the financial aid office set the amount of money? Was that the question?
Right, is the amount grant to the student is determined by the formula or a financial aid officer?
Whether you're right. Okay, so the formula determines whether the student has financial need or not. That's the first thing. So the college costs $70,000, the family can give $50,000, so the financial need is $20,000. Whatever that number is, that's what the financial aid officer works with. And then they say, okay, of that $20,000 that you're eligible for, we're going to give you an $8,000 grant, $5,000 loan, a $2,000 job, whatever. So the amount of the package between grant, the amount they get in total, and the division between grant, loan, and job is determined by the financial aid office.
Okay. I see there are two more people raise their hand. One's Rachel and one's Yafen Xu. You can speak, Rachel, please.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Don. My daughter trying to apply to University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. So do you know what's the difference between applying to the literature, science, arts school first year or the residential college? Do you know what's the difference? Thank you.
Yeah, for all, generally speaking, for all public institutions, there's the main part of the college is called art and science. That's the 100 majors, something like that. Generally speaking, if a student at any public institution, Michigan, North Carolina, UVA, Berkeley, whatever, if they apply to art and science, which is all the majors, the chance for admissions is better than if they apply to a school like engineering, computer science, performing arts, business, whatever, okay? So if it's going to be a close call on admissions, I advise my students apply to art and science, and then later on decide what you want to major in, and maybe you can do an internal transfer to one of the other schools, okay? For me, getting in is the most important thing. And I don't like to see a student apply to a really difficult college within a university where they're not going to make it when they could otherwise have been admitted. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Don.
Okay, next one for Yafen Xu. You can speak now.
Hello, just have a quick question. Like if international students had already come to US for the college for the second year, can they still apply for the financial aid?
They're coming for the second year. Is they're a transfer student, or what are they?
For student, they already been university in US.
All right, so they're a transfer student, yes?
This still can apply for that, right?
Well, now you got another set of financial aid policies, okay? The universities generally first take care of their own regular students, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors. Now they open up the doors for some transfers depending upon the college policy. For a while, Princeton took no transfers, now they do. And then you'd have to read in the financial aid section, what is the financial aid policy for transfer? My guess is it's probably pretty strict, okay? And it depends on the institution. Some might treat them like any other sophomore who's going from freshman to sophomore year. Others will say we have very little aid for sophomores, whatever. I mean, for transfer students. So that's a policy that varies by institution, and you have to be very careful that that institution gives reasonable financial aid to a transfer student, because frankly, they would be farther down the list than how a college spends this money. They want to take care of their own students going on through the 4 years first, and then they would like to bring in some transfers. So it really depends a lot on the strength of the financial aid program and their policy towards transfers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now go back to the chat box. Here, Sophie Zhao is asking, when does recruiting usually open every year?
When does it open? Well, the NCAA has dates. You can go in the NCAA and look at it. They've got certain periods where coaches can go on campus, leave campus, go recruiting, whatever. So it depends on the sport. So if you want to know, you'd have to go on NCAA.com, go and look under the different recruiting seasons for your sport, and you'll find out basically when it opens, what the restrictions are for coaches to make visits off campus, on campus, and all that. So you've really got to look it up by individual sport.
Okay. this question from Wei Zhu. Can you talk about recruiting for men's ice hockey?
Okay. It's like any other sport. It's got Division 1, 2, and 3. Okay, the very high level schools in Minnesota, North Dakota, whatever. There's probably a spotlight sport for them. You got to be very good, and they probably give full scholarships because that's their main sport on campus. The Ivy League all has ice hockey teams, but once again, there's no financial aid. And I've talked to you about the kind of profile you need to have a chance to get in. You got to have an AI that meets the standards. So it really depends. In most cases, it's the Division 1 schools. It depends. I mean, if you've got an ice hockey player, the main thing to do is take a spread of schools, some Division 1 schools, some Division 3, maybe some 2, and fill out the questionnaires on the websites. I played for this team, I scored so many goals, I went to this tournament, whatever. Send an email to the coach saying, I just filled out the questionnaire, I avidly wait your response, and just see, based on your level of ability, what coaches get back to you and show an interest. So it's a standard recruiting, whether it's ice hockey, basketball, or soccer, okay? Questionnaire, email, following up with the questionnaire to alert them that you sent it, and then you wait for the coach to respond in a positive way. If the coach doesn't respond in a positive way, you move on to another school.
Okay, great. Okay, this question is from Shu. Don, does each Ivy school has the same formula for expected family contribution, EFC?
They do. They all use profile. So they all start at the same place. They all get the same form. However, there's something called professional judgment in financial aid, that even though the same information goes into 2 colleges, the aid office at one may allow, let's say, for business expenses, or may allow for support going to an Asian grandmother or something like that, okay? And another school may not. So even though they're very comparable in their financial aid policies, they get the same information, the individual financial aid officers may make, and they're allowed to do this, may make professional judgment and allow one thing in one school and not allow it another, okay? So it really depends. So most likely the awards will end up probably pretty similar, okay? But they may vary based on how a college looks at some of these special cases. You know, support to a grandparent, extra support for a younger child who's got some medical expenses. There could be things like that. The 2 different financial aid officers would evaluate differently, okay? But I don't think generally Ivy League that the aid awards will be very much apart. They may be apart by some, but they don't have to be the same. I guess that's the point. They will be comparable in most cases.
Thank you. If you don't talk, make sure, can you mute yourself? That way all other people not interacted. Don, I see a couple people like XH and let me see, a couple people like Jen, Jane, Jen Zhang, all interested in the program we just mentioned about 1 hour consulting, and also have the system evaluating the student with current status. So if any of your family students were interested the program I just explained, talk about it, have a consultation with Don by hour. You can add my WeChat and also Allison's WeChat, which is Allison already put on the WeChat box. Allison 646-637-6240. Adding her WeChat or adding my WeChat, Sophia Shi 1998. We can give you detail about the price and also the detail of how you're going to sign up for that service with the Dawn. I think it's excellent because there's no service out there. There's some people saying, oh, you know, high school providing a lot of a system like that to evaluating the student, and they are not as comprehensive as this one. This one, they considering all aspects of the college application area, like 6 or 7 items of academic, 6 or 7 of a personal side, including you're interested about the athletic side, okay, sports side. So if you are interested that, like I said, Allison said, just adding 2 of us WeChat, we'll be happy to facilitate and give you the price and also let you know what you'll be able to have that. Doesn't matter if you are not our customer or not, doesn't matter. We offer that service to you because I know other company doesn't have that. Okay. Tony, question. Hi, Don. Is girl golf major a sport for Ivy League universities?
Golf is not a major sport. Okay, men or women's golf is not a major sport. Okay, and there's probably some definition of what's major and what's minor. I mean, generally basketball, football, and a few others are considered major sports. Golf and some others like that, fencing, things like that are not considered major. However, major, minor doesn't make any difference as far as a coach being able to send a recruit list to admissions, okay? And so that occurs no matter whether it's major or minor. So the female golf coach at Princeton will send a list to admissions, and that admissions will evaluate that the way all the other lists come in, okay? Now, the one difference might be if it's a football quarterback, that football quarterback may have more of a break than a female golfer. But nevertheless, the process is the same. If it's an intercollegiate sport, men, women, major, minor, the process is the same.
Okay, thank you. I think you might answer this question, but I wanted to repeat that again. Maybe someone did not hear clearly. It's come from Stephen Xu. Some elite volleyball player committed to a college recruiting in their junior year. How to make this happen, and what is your suggestion after this happens?
Yes, what I talked about. It's a verbal commitment, okay? It's before the letter of intent. Obviously, it's a good volleyball player. Looks like the coach said, if you commit to me, I'll follow through, and I think you can be admitted. And the girl, in this case, it's a girl, I guess, says, yeah, fine, let's keep going. I'll give you a verbal commitment. I'll attend. Coach gives you a verbal commitment. You'll be admitted, and it may work out just fine. It goes through you've got to file an admissions application. You've got to sign a letter of intent. You've got to go through all these things. You may get a scholarship. You may not. So in the best of all worlds, that'll work out. But it is verbal on both sides, and things can change. So that's what you have to consider. It depends on the honesty of both parties, whether that eventually leads to an admissions and a financial aid or whatever else goes with it.
Okay. This one's asking that possibility of walk-on has a little influence of admission.
Walk-ons do not get an admissions break for being an athlete. Okay, the definition of walk-on is I'm not on the coach's list. You don't know about me, but I think I'm a good player. So I talked about this before. You visit the coach, you say, do you have tryouts? Which is the same thing. Walk-on and tryouts are the same thing. You go to the coach's office and say, do you do tryouts? Do you do walk-ons? And the coach says yes or no. They say yes. At soccer, we did that. We had a day before the team started, the regular team started to play. We had all the walk-ons or tryouts come. We let them play for a morning session, afternoon session. And in most cases, we picked 2 or 3 students from the walk-ons, and we said, join the varsity and join our practice. And as I said before, in some cases, those walk-ons end up being starters on the varsity that played at a very high level, okay? But you go to the coach and ask the coach whether you can try out. They say, yes, you get your gear and you show up at the tryout and do the best you can.
Thank you. I see a lot of questions similar. Like people asking, if cross country or track is major sports. How do you determine what is major sports?
I don't think I don't think it makes any difference, major or minor. I don't know kind of where you divide that line, okay? If it's an intercollegiate sport, not a club sport where you play, intramural, whatever, you play other colleges, okay, intercollegiate under the NCAA, it doesn't make sense whether it's major, minor or not. It'll have a full-time coach, most likely a full-time coach, who will have authority from the admissions office to submit a list, and you will get the same type of read and benefit as an athlete that all the other athletes will. The only thing that might do major minor is some colleges will give more of a break to so-called major athletes than they will to so-called minor athletes, okay? But that's not your concern. Your concern is you will go through the same admissions process as far as having a coach support you for admission. Okay, and that's what counts. There's really nothing you do whether it's major or minor. If that's your sport and you get recruited, you give in the information, hopefully the coach will support you, and hopefully you'll get admitted. Okay, so don't worry about major, minor.
Okay, thank you. There's a mom asking Allison on the WeChat is, if the girl or their kids already in college, they did not have enough time to apply for financial aid. Is it enough time to do that? Or that's supposed to be applied every year?
They're already in college?
Mm-hmm.
What does not have enough time mean?
I know.
All right, so that's a good question, other than not enough time part of it. Okay. In most cases, colleges, they actually admit the freshman class, they have a budget. They expect the freshman class to get aided sophomore, junior, and senior year. If you're not aided for whatever reason freshman year, you still fill out an aid application, okay? You're a new aid applicant. And now it depends a little bit on the college policy and how much money they have, how generous they are. In most cases, if you're there and you now apply as a sophomore, they will try and fit you into the regular aid stream, okay? I mean, I know at Princeton we would, okay, maybe the income dropped. There was money freshman year, but there's no money sophomore year, something like that. So it depends on the college's financial aid policy. But the point is, if you've gotten through the freshman year and you struggle and you really need financial aid for junior, sophomore, junior, apply for financial aid or visit the financial aid office and say, I wasn't on aid freshman year. Can I apply for aid now? And will you treat me like the other aid students? Okay. So Sophia, as you might understand, I'm really big on talking to people, okay? So if you've got a problem, visit the office and talk to the person.
Yes.
If you're a walk-on, go to the coach and talk to the coach. If it's a financial aid issue, go to the financial aid office and talk to them about it, okay? That's the way to do things, okay?
I agree. I'm a big person, meeting person as well. I think nothing can replace human connection. I totally agree with the Don. Instead of sending an email, sometimes if okay, just, like you said, visit the school, and if that, important to you or serious to you, you should make that effort.
Yeah, the other question we don't have, which I get all the time, is let's say you get a financial aid award and you don't think it's enough, and you want to appeal your financial aid award, okay? In this case, I would not email, I will hop in a car and drive to that college and get right in front of the financial aid office and say, we want to come here, we like it very much, you're very generous with us, but you could at least increase the grant to X, Y, or Z, okay? Mm-hmm. And I've done this, I don't know how many hundreds of times. It's much harder to say no in person to a nice a couple that comes in and is very sincere about this than it is to answer an email, okay, and say, sorry, we don't have any money. That's pretty easy to do, okay? So if it's important, do it in person. If you can't do it in person, call them. If you can't call them, then do email. But email should be the third thing. Yeah,
I agree. Okay, I know there's still some question here, but I think you talked about a lot already. A lot of people still asking how to recruit for D3 tennis. I think Don already talked about this, right? Talk about this already.
Yeah, questionnaire, email questionnaire, see what their response is. If you're in the neighborhood, maybe stop in and say hello to the coach, okay? But you self-recruit.
Yeah, okay. From Lucy Law, how good is NCSA recruiter? Receiving NCSA recruiter interesting or contact means what?
So I assume this is one of these recruiting services. I don't know this one in particular. There are people who divide up parts of the college application process. I know some of them. There are people who do sports recruiting only. And they say, if you work with me, I will get in touch with some coaches who I know, and I'll do this and I'll do that and whatever. And if you think they're honest and they can help you and it's going to make a difference and have a reasonable price, you can sign on with them. I don't know this company or I don't know who their staff is, but there are companies that specialize in athletic recruiting, okay? There are companies that specialize in just financial aid. They say, I'll help you fill out the forms, I'll help you do this, I'll help you do that, okay? So any of those kind of special services, you've got to rely on the fact they know what they're doing, they're going to give you a good result, and their price is reasonable, okay? That's up to you to decide.
Okay, anyone else have a question? More question to ask? Sorry, if not, maybe we just close the floor for today. Allison, do you see any other questions we can answer?
I think it should be fine. Okay, should I send a video clip to coach? I mean, I think today it's pretty late, and we try to invite some maybe sports recruiters maybe next time or maybe later to give another webinars to our audience. I think we can close it up, and for
maybe one more person. I saw
okay.
Sarah C. Give us Sarah
Hi.
C last talk. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Don, I have a question, which is regarding to, say, Ivy League. I saw that they have wrestling teams, but mainly it looked like they only have boys. So I have a daughter, and I was wondering that if she can apply to those wrestling teams, or no, they won't accept girls. That's my question.
She's a wrestler, but they don't have a women's wrestling team?
Yeah, it looked like on the mainly the Ivy Leagues, they only look like they have boys. They don't really have girls.
Yeah, okay, so she would not be a wrestler at Princeton then, if they don't have the team.
Okay, because like, for example, I saw Columbia, they do have girls club, and MIT, they have girls club also,
Yeah,
but it's
so-
only club instead of team.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any varsity wrestling in the Ivy League for girls. You can check the different colleges, but there would be club teams. There are club teams. So there's intercollegiate, okay? That's what we've been talking about. That's where the admissions comes in, and that's whatever. There are also club sports, more informal. They usually have a part-time coach, or one of the players is a coach. Rugby would be one. Maybe women's wrestling is one, things like that. And what they do is the kids who are interested organize their own team, they organize their own schedule, they hop in a couple cars and they drive up to Columbia and they wrestle, or they do whatever they do, they play rugby. So basically it's in between intramural sports, which is when the campus plays among each other, the dormitories play and the fraternities play. That's intramural within the university. Intercollegiate is the organized high-level NCAA sports. In between are club sports, informal, run by the students, but they still play other schools. Okay, that's the key. Rugby is a very common club sport. Crew is a very common club sport. Okay, so it sounds to me like Columbia has a club girls wrestling team, but Princeton doesn't. I don't know. You'd have to look that up. I've been away for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Okay, one more question. I know a lot of people asking us that too. Bill is asking Don, what's your opinion? Do girls have more admission chance than boys at MIT?
I say it's even. If you go back 10 or 15 years, I think there weren't that many girls in STEM compared to the boys, but girls are really doing a heck of a job all the way around nowadays. And actually, I deal with a number of students, and I don't see any difference. In fact, I probably see more highly qualified girls in STEM than I do guys. So whatever that was years ago, I certainly don't see it. And I assume MIT sees the same thing. They probably see just as many STEM girls as they do STEM boys. So I doubt if there's a difference.